Before we dive into the hottest news topics, if you love Flash Drive, make sure you're following us on Spotify and Apple to know as soon as any new content drops.
Scott Morrison owes the Australian people an apology for undermining our parliamentary democracy system of government that we have.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirms there will be another inquiry into Scott Morrison's shadow ministry. This comes after the Solicitor General slammed the former PM for undermining responsible government. But do you even care?
We didn't have any government meetings during that weekend. I had time off and spent it with my friends and did nothing illegal.
She's young, she's attractive, she likes a party. The so-called crimes of Finland's PM, Sanna Marin, as the fallout continues from a leaked video of a boisterous night.
And how good's travelling?
The last time we flew, I wouldn't say it was a pleasant flight.
Yes, Qantas is paving the way to atonement for endless delays and cancelled flights with some perks. But are they perky enough?
I'm Georgie Tunny.
And I'm James Law.
And this is Flash Drive. J-Law, what a week.
What a week.
And what a day. We are recording this on the day where we have just received news that John Farnham, the voice of Australia, has cancer.
I know, really sad news. And I texted you this morning, I was like, not today, Satan.
Not today,
First
Satan.
Judith Durham, then Olivia Newton-John, and I cannot cop anything happening to Farnsey.
No, I know.
Not on my watch.
No, I always feel like whenever there's a tragedy in the musical world, there's this thought of is he safe? Put him in a box. Is he good? Is he safe? Where is he? Is Farnham okay? What's going on? We know that he has a cancerous growth, which he's going to have surgery for. And I think the latest reports are that the doctors and the surgeons who'll be working with him are confident that they can get rid of all of that tissue. So 2022, you are on notice. Mm-hmm. Stop being shit.
Exactly. Because, I couldn't cop it. I will not cop anything happening to Farnsey. And, I did like what he said in his statement, though, that he said, this is something that millions of Australians go through and, I'm just like them. So hopefully everything turns out all right for him.
Fingers, toes, everything crossed for John, the voice, Farnham. Now, J-Lo, we do have to get into today's episode of the podcast because so much for us to talk about. Mm-hmm. Do you happen to remember that time the former Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, secretly swore himself into a number of ministries?
Yeah, there were 5, weren't there?
There may have been 5.
I mean, our memory is better than his, I think, because he forgot about a couple.
Yeah, look, I recall 5, but, we'll see. We'll see. But the fallout is continuing, and now the former Deputy PM, Barnaby Joyce, thinks everyone needs to chill out about it. He's had enough. At least that's what he told David Spears.
There's a little bit of hyperventilation coming into this, and I understand the insiders as a political program is focused on it, but they're not focused on this at the checkout at IGA.
But the current Deputy PM sees it all very differently.
Whatever is the legal advice, there needs to be some political consequence for a person who has flouted the Westminster cabinet system so completely.
So that was Richard Marles also speaking to the ABC. And today, Anthony Albanese has again taken aim at his predecessor's actions.
I don't think anyone in this room, certainly no one in the current government, sat around and said, I wonder if Scott Morrison has been put in charge of the Department of Industry, Science, the Department of Home Affairs, or whether he's made himself treasurer. Clearly, there is a need to ensure there's absolute confidence in our political system and our political processes going forward.
Okay, J-Lo, let's just recap where we are at right now because the whole process continues. It's going to keep continuing because Anthony Albanese has confirmed that there will be an inquiry of sorts being sparked from the findings of the Solicitor General that were released today. What did you make of the press conference and really, I guess, Anthony Albanese trying to explain what on earth the Solicitor General did find? Because I found it so convoluted and confusing.
Right. Well, let me try and put it into layman's terms. So
Yes,
Anthony Albanese tasked the Solicitor General with looking into this, which is the correct and proper process. What's unusual is for the government to release the Solicitor General's findings. Usually they wouldn't. But in the interests of transparency, which is what this whole issue is about, Albo decided to release it. And what it said essentially was that ScoMo did not break any laws. It was not illegal what he did. It followed, constitutional processes. But what it is very unusual and undermined the Westminster system. And that's all about cabinet processes and about, disclosure and that sort of thing. So nothing illegal, but definitely something strange, unconventional, and probably something that we don't want repeated.
And do you think that because of this, and now this announcement that there is going to be an inquiry in whatever form that does take, do you think that this will then affect Scott Morrison's behaviour going forward, his party's behaviour going forward, the coalition's reaction to Scott Morrison? Like, do you think it actually changes anything in the immediate?
Well, I think that across the board, most politicians have agreed that this is wrong. Even ones on his side who maybe said, he didn't do anything that really affected the country or put the country in any danger or anything like that. But they all go, oh, it's a bit weird and you shouldn't have done it. And I think everybody agrees with that. But it does, I think that there is a need to try to formally stamp this out and stop it from being able to happen again, because it's the sort of thing where like a leader who's in a bit of a desperate situation might think of pulling the same trick again. And certainly if you can do it at the federal level, you could probably do it at the state level as well, right? Secretly sign yourself into a few portfolios without anyone knowing, just to kind of solidify your grip on the party or your position as leader. So I think that it does need to be stamped out. Whether we need a big drawn-out inquiry, I'm not so sure, because I think we know what happened.
Yes.
Pretty comprehensively, we know what went wrong. So I'd be inclined to just let's get straight to it and, set a new law that if you do something like this, you need to disclose it.
I would be in favour of that as well, because just again to reinforce that I found it very confusing trying to follow exactly what was happening. I even had a shot at reading the findings from the Solicitor General.
Yikes.
And I'm just going to take a second, listeners and J-Law, to play a part of the press conference that I found interesting, because it was Andrew Probyn, the ABC's political journo, himself trying to phrase a question based off some of the findings and see if you, like me, maybe lost your way a little bit in this. Have a listen.
Prime Minister, at paragraph 51, it talks about the gazetting, or gazettal as it says. It reads, it appears that the gazettal of appointments under section 65 occurs at the instigation of the Governor-General, and then says if that's correct, and if the Governor-General were to agree to institute such practice, then he could avoid or insulate himself from the wishes of the Prime Minister. Are you disappointed that in this instance it wasn't gazetted, as clearly the Governor-General could have done and practice that was followed with previous Governors-General?
Like, what the actual hell?
Come again?
Yeah, right? Like, what is this? And I just had to laugh, because within the answer that Anthony Albanese gave there, it's like, well, I think the report makes it pretty clear.
First, what is gazettal?
No, I was like, excuse me, use it in a sentence. What is the root of the word? Like, what does this mean? But it does bring me back to a point, actually, that Barnaby Joyce made over the weekend, in that him thinking that everyday Aussies do not care about this. And again, this type of jargon, this type of, micro detail that we go into can be, can put them off even further. So why do you think that Australians should care with what's going on here?
Well, see, I'm not convinced by what Barnaby Joyce said in that interview. So, he was saying in this Insiders interview on Sunday morning, he was very cranky. And it was pretty...
so cranky.
It was a pretty funny interview. Anyway, he was trying to say that, people who are trying to pay for their groceries and worry about cost of living, they don't give a crap about this. Yeah. I don't think that's true. I think that Australians... I think it's cut through a lot. Certainly on Flash, we ran a lot of videos on this last week, and they were among our most watched, because I think that people are sniffing a scandal here. Well, certainly that what Scott Morrison did was dodgy. Not disclosing it was dodgy. And I think his answers about why he didn't disclose it did not hold up. I think his argument was, I didn't use it anyway, and if I had have disclosed it, people might have got uncomfortable with it. Oh, you don't say. So, yes, I do think people care, and Sky News had an interesting story last week as well, which we ran on Flash, which was one of the reporters asking people in Scott Morrison's electorate of Cook what they thought about this. And they said things like dodgy, and they said things like disappointing, and that they didn't like it. To be fair, there were others who liked Scott Morrison regardless, but there was certainly a number of voters who were not too pleased about it. So I think it is cutting through.
And I have to once again just urge our listeners, if you haven't listened to the chat that we had last week with Samantha Maiden from news.com.au, who's been at the forefront of this story, go back and listen to it, because her insights, her take, her humour with trying to explain it to us makes it so much clearer than certain reports, can I just say? And also a lot clearer than that interview with Barnaby Joyce over the weekend. Now, if anyone's missed it, I just have to play this grab, so bear with me, J-Law. See if you can figure out what on earth he's saying.
There's nothing confusing about it, David. Listen to me. Keith Pitt was the minister. I'm telling you, look, and there's no trick, hokery, pickery, trick to this. I'm giving you a straight answer. Keith Pitt, on everything in resources, was responsible. There was a conjecture on one issue, PEP 11, right? Now, what do I need to do? Do I need to write it and hand it to you in a letter? I mean, it's as clear as that.
Helpful. That'll be helpful. I wouldn't mind if it was written in a letter, but it had like dot point breakdowns. I think would be great. It was such a bizarre chat. I thought
he was really quite cranky at David Spears, and David Spears has this forensic way of asking questions and never getting riled up at the way that the politicians carry on. And he'll just keep asking the same question and go, I'm sorry, I don't understand, and just keep hammering them with it in the most polite way.
I know.
And it drives them crazy sometimes, and it really got Barnaby riled up. It was great TV.
I remember speaking to Christopher Pyne once, now retired politician.
Do the voice.
I'm a fixer. And
Christopher Pyne.
Christopher Pyne. I'm a fixer. And he was telling me about that interview with David Spears, and he just said where it all came out, and he was like, well, I'm a fixer, David. This is what I have to do. I'm a fixer. And I was like, how did that all happen? And he's just like, I was just in a bad mood. And then I was going on Insiders, and I knew I had to sell something, and I had to do this. And then he just kept asking the question. And I had to answer it. And I was like, that is Spearsy.
Yeah. He doesn't let it go through to the keeper, that's for sure.
No, but he has a lovely smile all the time, all the time too.
It's a charmer.
This story, in summary, is not going anywhere. We will try and comprise maybe a glossary of terms.
Gazettal, hickory, pokery. These are some of the keywords. There will be a test at the end.
Yeah, I know.
Hokery, pickery.
Appendix 4 for that one. To Appendix 4.
Georgie, meanwhile, Albo was spotted in Sydney this week, downing a beer in record time at a Gang of Youths concert. Fair to say the crowd loved it. But does everybody like a fun politician?
Dancing, drinking, singing. This is the video that's shone an unwelcome spotlight on Finland's Prime Minister. Sanna Marin in the black top, enjoying a wild night with friends at a private party. The 36-year-old's political opponents say it shows she's not taking her job seriously and have accused her of consuming more than alcohol.
Yes, Finland's PM Sanna Marin has tested negative to narcotics after a video was leaked last week of her partying with friends. Looked like a bit of a good time to me. I don't know.
Where was our invite, Sanna?
Right. Now, the Vision, it split opinion and raised the question, can world leaders have fun and run the country? So what did you make of this story, Georgie?
First off, I have to put it on the record that my brain does take a while to catch up about having politicians, world leaders, and seeing them as people outside of their roles. So, for instance, being at a party and seeing Sanna Marin there, and I'd be like, I'm aren't you running? Aren't you busy? No, we're here. Okay. And then like I would find that really quite confusing. But I think the main issue here and why it had so much controversy, really, I think it's unwarranted controversy. I think that as a world, we're just not used to seeing young leaders and we're still not used to seeing female leaders, because I do not think that Sanna Marin would have copped half the criticism that she did if it was a young guy who was out on the town.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
Really?
Because I think, all right, so in Australia, we will encourage our leaders to down a drink.
I was going to say, Albo.
That's for sure, Albo. Yeah. And like the same thing happened to ScoMo at the footy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
we're fickle. Whoever it is, we're just like, down a drink.
Yeah,
Oh,
we don't mind.
approved.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. But I think if you saw a video of Albo drunk dancing, I don't know that people would be into that.
I mean, I think, yes, I think that there would be shirts made. There would be, like Dan Andrews, like get on the beers, and then it's like this huge pop culture moment, Whereas if, say, Karen Andrews, in my head, she's the first one that popped into my head.
I mean, she gets lit. Everybody knows that.
Right? But if she was in some video, having fun with her friends, and that fun did involve, partying, dancing a little bit sexily, I think everyone would have so much more of an issue with it, and she'd probably have to front a press conference and say, I'm so sorry that I'm a human.
I'm just trying to think about Karen Andrews' sexy dancing.
I'm sorry for putting that picture in people's minds, but it could happen. This is what I mean. We need to normalise it, because then it's not just such worldwide news. I also struggle just with the fact that Sanna Marin is 36 years of age, and when she was elected, she would have been like 34 or something. And it is important to note that she has been aware of this criticism she was likely to get from that very moment. This was her a couple of years ago.
What comes to social media or Instagram, I think that I'm an individual, a person, a real person also, even though I'm a prime minister. So I won't change the way I behave.
I think that there is something to say for that. Like, in my head, I am impressed by that, because I think that in the same position, if I was running a country and had all of that responsibility, I probably just couldn't be bothered continuing with the fun style of life, right? But she can. She's able to do both, and really it's not hurting her perception in Finland, at least according to these punters.
It's really all right, everyone has the right to have a good time.
She should have fun too in her life.
She has made a first-class job. What she's doing in her free time, that's not our business.
Not our business. I think one of the interesting points that has arisen with this story from her opponents, her political opponents, that have brought this to, the world's attention, because I think at the first bit it was like, oh my gosh, you need to act in a respectable way. You're the Prime Minister of the country. Then they kind of got that blowback from everyone being like, hang on, she's 36 years old, she can do what she wants. It's not affecting her job. And now they've kind of tried to switch the narrative to being like, well, surely this shows poor judgment on her behalf because she was hanging out with friends and they're the ones that must have leaked this video because it was taken in a private household. I think that kind of has maybe more merit than criticisms of her age.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it was interesting hearing what the people had to say. I feel like they're saying, you got to fight for your right to party, which I agree with. But, I guess to be honest, I think that it isn't very prime ministerial, and you do kind of have to, it's unfortunate, but you do need to think about your image every day of your life while you're there, and probably even afterwards. And I don't think it's something that you would see Jacinda Ardern do, who's like quite a well-respected leader, woman and young. And I don't think you would see her do that. So I think it probably does tarnish her brand a little bit. At the same time, she'll probably pick up lots of new fans across the world.
Well, I think she did actually get voted in Germany, some German poll, as the coolest politician that exists in the world. I think in my head, again, going back to, my brain sort of malfunctions about her age, 36. Like, she's younger than my partner and she's running a country. And I'm just not sure, when does it switch? Is it as I get older and leaders start getting like similar ages to me that I'll like see it as not news anymore when it's a super young leader? Like how can we normalise, mid 30-year-olds having such power?
Yeah, well, Dom Perrottet, he's in his 30s too, which is like, he doesn't come across that way though.
No.
Like he comes across much older and he's got all those
I'm
kids.
not exactly seeing Dom Perrottet gyrating and get someone at a party either.
I don't want to see that.
No.
I don't want to see that.
Another beautiful image for you flash drivers.
Though Albo, like I reckon, so I live in the inner west of Sydney, which is the electorate of Grayndler, which Albo has, been in for decades. And you do kind of see him just kicking around at the shops and like sometimes he'll be, having a drink and you'll see him around. And
Does your brain ever go, oh, that can't be Albo? Surely that's not him. Or are you just so used to it, you're like, oh no, it's definitely Albo.
And I think what he does, I think that he quite deliberately spreads his business around. Like I think he will go there and have coffee there and have lunch there and spread it around. He goes to the theatre, he goes to gigs, and I think he does that quite deliberately, A, because I think he genuinely does like the area, and B, it's a good look, right? So yeah, I just, if I ever see him, I try not to make a big deal. Just like let him go about his business. Probably a bit harder to see nowadays because he'd need security backup.
He would need lots of security, especially if he's going to be downing beers everywhere he goes.
That's it.
People are going to want to party with Albo.
I don't think he will say no to a drink, Albo. No. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Scoop. Scoop here. I think that with this final thought on the Sanna Marin, I think the world kind of needs to check itself somewhat, because if we're trying to encourage our youngest and brightest stars to go into politics, we do need to sort of make it a profession that is attractive to them. And I think that if it is just all work, no play, maybe you need to have, better friends and be smarter about your friends. But I don't think we should discount it as just like you have to choose. You have to make a choice.
I'm reminded of something Miley Cyrus once said. She was asked about Justin Bieber when he was in his bad boy phase and he was like publicly screwing up left, right and centre.
Yes.
And Miley said, party in your house and invite good friends around only who won't leak it against you. Maybe the same advice goes for Sanna.
Always think of Miley, guys. I thought you were going to burst out into Hannah Montana, the best of both worlds, to be honest. I was like, you've got the best.
It's the climb.
It's the climb. God, Queen Miley, yes.
Also, yeah, she's got that song about partying. What's
Party
that one?
in the USA.
Oh, no, but there's another one.
Oh. I was born.
No, it goes out. It's our We Won't Stop. That one.
Oh, we can't stop. Yeah, we won't
It's
stop.
our party. We can do what we want.
The patron saint of Flash Drive, Miley Cyrus.
She just applies to everything. Yeah. Remember, Flash Drivers, if you're loving the podcast, let us know. Subscribe and leave 5-star reviews and tell your friends, hell, tell your enemies. Everyone needs to be across the news of the week.
Moving on, and J-Law, just how much travelling have you been able to lock in since borders, either interstate or international, have reopened?
None international, and maybe just a few like kind of 1-hour flights, Melbourne. That's about it.
What would you rate the experience out of 10?
Oh.
You can go negative.
1.5. Yeah. I've actually last time I went somewhere on a plane, I ended up having a flight cancelled and having to stay an extra night in the Gold Coast.
Oh, God.
Yeah, because there just was none flight. No
was
flight.
Part of your Splendour journey?
This was part of my Splendour ordeal.
Oh, my God. Once again, Flash Drivers, just making Splendour in the mud. Look at that. Oh, so attractive.
But in the scheme of things, it was like 5th or 6th newsworthy thing that happened to me.
That's true. That's true. Well, while I can't promise that everyone's had this horror experience that J-Law had with Splendour in the Mud, I can pretty much assure everyone that everyone's having a shit time when it comes to travelling.
After months of flight cancellations, snaking queues and major delays, Qantas wants to make amends with its passengers.
We know the return to flying hasn't all gone smoothly. Over the past few months, too many of you have had flights delayed, flights cancelled, or bags misplaced.
Alan Joyce issuing that apology, saying that it's really not up to standard, and he blamed factors also out of control of the airline. For example, the weather and also staff shortages during the pandemic.
In a generation, we moved from what were once good, secure jobs that the Australian public coveted. People wanted to be there for years and years. They wanted their kids to be there. And we've now moved through deliberate corporate decision-making headed up by the CEO to a position where these are outsourced workers, they're insecure jobs, people can't get more than 20 hours a week, they're very close to the minimum wage.
So that little news montage finishing with the Transport Workers Union rep Nick McIntosh criticising Qantas CEO Alan Joyce. So to make amends for the disarray that's really been going on all year, I would say, it seems to ramp up every time there's school holidays on.
Yep.
But I would say that this has been a big issue ever since the borders have reopened and trying to cope with an influx of people being able to come back into the country, but really lots of Australians just trying to get out of the country and go on all of these holidays that they haven't been able to do for the last few years. So to make amends for that, Alan Joyce has offered some perks.
All frequent flyers, regardless of level, will be handed a $50 voucher to use on any return flight, along with an invitation to a Qantas lounge. For silver members and above, status will be extended by 12 months. Flyers with a gold status will receive an invite to any Qantas business lounge, while platinum and platinum 1 flyers are being gifted up to 30,000 Qantas points.
So basically, if you already have a pretty high status, you're gonna do better when it comes to what rewards you're getting for your patients. Is that enough, J-Law? And how bad do you think that this is for Qantas?
Look, I think they're throwing the people a bone, and they need to do that. It's probably a good PR move. I don't think people were expecting to get anything like this from Qantas, so they'll probably get a tick for it.
Mm-hmm. $50 though? $50 voucher?
Bucks. I mean, it's better than a kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
You know, better than nothing.
Better than a so sorry.
Yes, exactly. So I feel like it's a gesture that people will probably appreciate, but it really doesn't get to the core of the issue, which the union rep started to get into in the montage that you played, where the clip, like obviously this has a lot to do with the pandemic. There's not much they could do about that. They had to lay off a lot of people, but there is a problem with the way that these people have been employed for a long time, where it's been insecure work. They probably haven't been paid well enough. So, like, isn't it like a lot of these people are now working at Woolies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are liking that more than working at airports. And that's on Qantas.
Yeah. And I think too, there's part of me that is, of course, sympathetic because, you know, the airline industry was one of the industries hit hardest by the pandemic. It was absolutely decimated and destroyed, quite frankly. But also there's part of me that's like, wasn't there some foresight though for when it was going to be okay again to kind of like bolster the working stocks, get those practices up to scratch, like
entice those people back.
Entice the people back that you've treated pretty poorly, but for, you know, whether or not you had any choice to or not, I think that's the bit that I'm struggling with. I'm like, how can it be so poor right now?
Yeah. And what about you? So you fly a lot more than me. You're sort of back and forth from Melbourne all the time for your project duties. What do you feel as a frequent flyer?
Well, this last Friday, I was on the tarmac for an extra 2 hours, had recorded the project that night and then gone straight to the airport for a 9 p.m. flight, raced to the Qantas Club, which I paid for, because I was like, with so much flying, I was like, I just need to be able to get in there and get some food.
Right.
Because all of the airports are under construction, so usually at that time of night there's nothing open. So if you need to eat, good luck. There's no chance. So I remember racing to the club and just scoffing down a curry, and then it was like, final call for the Sydney flight, and I was like, oh my God, like choking on a bread roll as I like ran through the empty terminal because there's no one else there, of course, always at the furthest terminal. Like
always.
Why am I at the gate? Why is the gate the furthest away? It's the only flight. Why am I all the way at gate 12? Anyway, eventually got there, was actually the last person onto the flight, and then sat there and was like, oh God, made it. Phew. Sat there for about 10 minutes and I was like, really didn't need to run after all that, given myself indigestion, didn't need to do that. And then the captain came on the loudspeaker, and just said, now, customers, I'm going to need you to really take in what I'm saying. I was like, that's not a good way to start anything. So it's like 8:50. We're meant to be leaving at 9. Sydney has a curfew, right? Like, you've got to get in before 11. Now, like, what we've discovered is that there's a flat tyre.
Oh, no.
And we need to replace the tyre. Good news is we've started that process. And everyone was like, oh, great. Bad news is process takes an hour. So now we are also on the phone to the Department of Transport and other Qantas people in Sydney trying to get an extension for the curfew so that we can land once we fix the tyre. But we can't really get that extension until we actually fix the tyre and know that it's fine.
Yikes.
So was trapped on the tarmac for 2 hours. Long story short, eventually did get into Sydney. They got the extension, but it was just one of those.
That's what woke me up.
Yeah.
It was you.
Yeah, it was me.
The planes fly right over me.
Yes, you're like, God damn it. You're like,
Tunny?
I will be writing a note to Albo, my MP. And it's just, but that has happened to me so many times throughout the last few months.
You kind of plan for that almost. Like you almost expect to be late, right?
Yeah, totally. But just the amount of times that something's been wrong with the plane, and I'm not sure if there's actually just more occurrences of this happening or, you know, it is just because I am flying a lot more than I usually do. But it's been an absolute nightmare. Although, controversial point of view here. Remember 4 months ago when Alan Joyce got absolutely like shellacked for this?
I think our customers are not match fit. And people forget they need to take out their laptops. They have to take out their aerosols.
So, I think he's right.
Really?
I think he's right. Now, at the time when he said that, everyone was up in arms being like, how dare you blame these systemic issues with the airports on your consumers? Like, what? Which I understand a little bit, but also everyone has forgotten how to take out their laptops and their aerosols. Everyone forgets. Always they're through and they're, oh, my phone, like back through the security. Everyone is lining up, has forgotten like how much you can actually take as carry-on rather than check-in. Like you can't take 28 kilos and 4 bags as carry-on luggage. Like that's not it. Also, why do people stand up as soon as the plane lands?
I mean, I never know. I never know.
Why? Like, I think that I'm like, where are you going? Where are you going?
There's another half hour here.
There's still another half. Yeah. Why are you racing? Why are you racing to get up? What is happening? Also, why do people just put their coats in the carry-on, like the little luggage up top?
Yeah.
Why? Why? It's a full flight. People need to put their things. Why have you got a coat up there? And everyone's like, oh, whose coat's this? Oh, it's mine. And it's like, can I put it down? Oh, yeah, I'll grab it. Why have you put it up there? Anyway.
But also, like, when you, like, race in at the last minute to the flight, like, that's the best. Because then you just like, well, it's still my seat. I still need to sit in that seat. Yeah, there's no need to line up beforehand.
But what if you can't get the carry-on, though? So I get stressed about that.
You put it underneath.
Well, yeah, like I do that now because I'm like, I've just got to be able to survive with a backpack and that's it.
Anyway, look, you make a good point. I don't know that Alan Joyce should have made that point. And to say match fit, like, come on, mate. Come on, mate. You can say it, Joycey cannot.
Okay, maybe fair. And I think that didn't help in terms of a PR strategy when you're trying to win people back to go travelling again and then you're just like, nah, you're a shit traveller.
Yeah. This is all your fault.
Yeah. What are some of your pet hates when it comes to travelling? I may have just disclosed some of mine there.
Yeah, it's sort of everything you just said.
All of that? I also have, though, I think a fun fact. Some research, J-Law, that I've done because I think that Australians are not match fit when it comes to travelling.
Okay, she's brought the receipts.
I've got some receipts. I think British people apparently are worse because 1 in 20 UK travellers pack with them kettles.
What?
Oven trays and even toasters.
In their carry-on or just in their bags?
In their bags. What? But what? Why? Like every single time they go on a flight, they need their kettle.
They do love a good cup of tea, the Brits.
I'm calling out the Brits. They're also not match fit.
That's crazy.
And they bring their own tea.
Well.
Like just like stockpiles of tea bags and apparently baked beans. That was also in the thing. I'm like, where are you going? You're so close to like Europe. What, Europe doesn't have delicious food?
I know, right?
Sorry, I'll just get my toaster.
But they need their good cup of tea. They need it.
Well, I mean, I understand if you're going to America because Americans don't have electric kettles, which just blows my actual mind.
That is incredible.
That's so dumb.
They just microwave water.
Yeah. So, which is just, have you seen on TikTok? I'll start sending the videos to you where it's like how to make a British person mad. And it's just like the Americans, like how they make their tea. And it's like they put the milk in first and then they put and then the sugar in with the milk. And you're like, what the hell? Then they put the hot water in, no tea bag.
And then that one where she hands it to her boyfriend and he goes, and then just throws it on the ground.
Yes. See? These are the big issues, flash drivers.
This is why.
Anyway, just in summary, traveling, if you are going to do it right now, do not even think about checking in bags. I don't know why people are. I understand if you have a family, that might make it a bit tough. But if you just solo travel, do not even think about checking anything in because you will be at the airport. You may as well move in there.
And when you follow her advice, take the laptop out, take the aerosols out.
Words to live by.
Okay. Yeah. Stay match fit, Australia.
Love hearing us chew the news fat and analyse the biggest and smallest headlines each week? Well, make sure you follow us on the socials so you don't miss any content. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter and YouTube. Get on it. J-Lo.
Yeah?
What's new on Flash?
Well, Georgie, we've had some feedback from our users.
Ooh, yeah.
And one of the things that they asked for is for us to just make it a little bit easier for them to get across the news.
Ooh.
That's what we're all about.
That is actually what we're all about.
So what we've got is a new carousel on the Flash platform that's very easy to find. It's right there under the main stories where you can just jump straight into the headlines of your choice. Australian headlines, jump right in, get up to date like in minutes. World headlines, US, sport headlines. It's all there, really easy to get up to date. Of course, we've got your daily news flash bulletins there as well.
That's right.
So, and we're finding that it's been up there for a couple of weeks and we're finding it's really popular with the audience for people who just want to...
It's kind of like a filtering system, right?
Yeah, because...
We've done the work for everyone.
This is what we're here for.
This is what we're here for, guys.
Yeah, and I think it really sums up what Flash is about. Flash is all about trying to give you your choice of news and make it really simple for you. So check out that new little feature on flashnews.com.au.
Make sure you're checking it out. Make sure you keep listening to J-Law and I because we honestly do love having a chat and going through all of the analysis from the week's biggest and smallest headlines. Thanks again for listening. See you next week. J-Law, catch ya.
Catch you then.